So in this video we're going to find out, is TerraMaster T9-450 faster than UNAS Pro that we tested in the last episode? Both of these NASs look slightly similar. They look like rack, but this one is not actually rack mount. It's supposed to be desktop NAS. This one is a 9-bay NAS which supports SATA SSDs or SATA hard drives, and also NVMe's at the back of this NAS. And yes, this NAS is quite heavy, so I'm going to put it away and going to go through the tests we're going to be performing today. Yes, I needed a notepad so I can tell you exactly what we're going to go through. So we're going to test this NAS regarding booting times, how quickly it can boot into admin panel, how quickly it can enable SMB services after a boot, how long it takes to shut that NAS down. There's one test that we are not going to do, which is RAID 1 test, but which we did on UNAS Pro. I think we're just going to stick with a RAID 5 test if there's more than 2 bays. So for that reason, we're going to do RAID 5 test, RAID 5 rebuild test, replacing one of the drives. We're also not going to be doing RAID 10 building test. We're going to stick with RAID 5. Then we're going to connect it directly through 10 gigabit SFP channel. And then we're going to test how quickly we can download 19 gigabytes of file and how quickly we can upload these 19 gigabytes. Then we're going to do a repetitive 1500 megabyte test, read and write, and see how long it takes. And the next test is going to be a remote file transfer. We're going to be transferring 1 gigabyte file to a remote location using TerraMaster own proxy service. It's similar like VPN, but not exactly. So it's going to be bouncing through their server in order to securely transfer that file. In this test, we're also going to use USB transfer. We will use External NVMe SSD and connect it at the back of the NAS and transfer these 19 gigabyte files through this channel. Then we will also test how long it takes to transcode 1 minute of 4K video. This is something what wasn't possible on UNAS Pro. We'll be doing this on TerraMaster NAS. And the last test that we're going to do is we will set 2 NVMe pools in the NAS and transfer 19 gigabyte file from one SSD to another to see what's the internal speed between these SSDs. Are there any bottlenecks? So let's go. So here we are next to our UNAS Pro. Here we got TerraMaster NAS. And before I boot it on, actually I'm going to go through a list that I noticed that I like or dislike, pros and cons. So on the negative side, it doesn't have a touchscreen panel that you would find on UNAS Pro. When you boot it up, I noticed it to be slightly louder than other NASs because of the fans at the back. Maybe they are slightly cheaper. There's also no easy mobile setup like on UNAS. You could have a Bluetooth connection and that would allow you to easily set it all up on your phone. The other thing what I noticed, there is no automated RAID rebuild. When you add new drive in the UNAS Pro, it would automatically start creating a RAID. Here it's a different scenario, you need to do it manually. The other thing is about remote access. When I was sharing files remotely, the connection was unstable. Sometimes you could connect to this share, sometimes you couldn't remotely. I think it's dependent on the proxy server in the middle. Sometimes it might be too busy. Other negative was when I was trying to download 19 gigabyte files in a raw folder. There was no option to archive them before download. You have to individually download every single file. When I was doing these remote transfers, I noticed that it's much slower compared to UNAS Pro proxy server for remote access. And the last negative is USB port. It only has 5 gigabit USB port. There's no 10 gigabit, but at least it has USB port. UNAS Pro doesn't have one. And then on the positive side, obviously, it's good to have 10 gigabit ports. You have 2 of those. They are optical SFP plus ports. You also get NVMe slots in there. There's a T-RAID option, which is similar to Drobo, Beyond RAID or Synology SHR. You can mix different drives and it will figure out how to keep the redundancy, even though the drives are different. Also notice that it's really fast regarding booting up, shutting down, and overall user interface is also fairly quick when you log in. So I would say it's very fast NAS. Also, when you open it up, you will notice there's PCIe slot X4, so you can add some cards if you wanted to, either extra SATA ports or 10 gigabit port, or maybe you want to play with graphics card. You also have 2 RAM slots. One is empty, so you can upgrade easily in more memory on this NAS. That's a very handy feature to have. It also comes with USB bootloader, so you can remove that bootloader USB stick and put unraid, for example, or TrueNAS or something else that you want to install on this, so it's hardware ready for any OS. And finally, the positive what I want to highlight is smart rebuild. If there's empty space on those hard drives, there's just a little bit of data on it. It's going to ignore the empty space during the rebuild, so that speeds up the process. And usually rebuild times are very important. When one drive is down and you need to make sure that rebuild is done as quickly as possible before the second drive fails, because there's a potential of losing your data. Enough of pros and cons, let's boot this thing up. How long it takes to boot it up. Okay, let's press the start button and see how long it's going to take. Let's fast forward, and admin panel will boot in how long? 1 minute or 2 minutes? So that's 2 minutes and 4 seconds. 2 minutes and 6 seconds. So let's continue the booting process and see when SMB service is going to become available. So let's see now how long it takes to get to SMB service, because the admin panel and SMB is two different things. SMB is when you gain access to the files actually. And that's 2 minutes 54 seconds. It takes slightly longer than accessing the admin panel. In UNAS Pro testing, SMB service actually become available before we could log into admin panel, which was a good sign. Okay, let's have a look how long it takes to shut this thing down. Is it going to take as long as booting the NAS, or is it going to be quicker? And that's 43 seconds. That's a very good score, especially if you have UPS connected to this thing. You want to make sure that it shuts down as quickly as possible before the battery runs out. So 43 seconds is a good score. So we're going to be doing RAID 5 tests now. We're going to be using Kingston DC500M. These are 480 gigabyte SSDs. Data center quality, data center performance. So we're going to use 3 of those SSDs to build RAID 5 and see how long it takes to build it. Otherwise, if you used hard drives, it would take much longer to do this process. So for testing reasons, we want to simplify and speed up things. Okay, our next test is creating RAID 5. So we're going to choose RAID 5 instead of RAID 1 or RAID 10 with 3 SSDs and see how long it takes. So that's 3 SATA SSDs, and that's 21 minutes 6 seconds. That's a very good score. Obviously these are SSDs. With hard drives you need to keep in mind that it will take much longer to build a RAID, but this is actually faster than UNAS Pro. Now, since we tested RAID 5 building times, let's test how long it takes to rebuild the RAID 5. So we're going to be removing a middle drive from RAID 5 and replace that with a brand new drive and see how long it takes. And that's 19 minutes 54 seconds. Building and rebuilding times are very similar, and this score is very good. Okay, before we move on to performance testing regarding file transfers, we want to make sure it has the best performance, best setup, best connections, best everything to achieve the best results. So what we're going to do, we're going to fill 6 bays with these Kingston SATA SSDs and set them in RAID 10. And let's have a look how long it actually takes to build RAID 10 using 6 SSDs. Click confirm and erase data and see. Is it going to take as long as building RAID 5, or is this something quicker? And the answer is 57 minutes 18 seconds. This is much longer compared to RAID 5. I think the reason for this is that RAID 10 is literally a mirroring one side of the pool to another side. It's not like RAID 5, which probably use smart technology, which ignores the empty space. With RAID 10, it took 57 seconds to build that. So for testing reasons, we will be connecting this TerraMaster T9 NAS with our MiniForum. This is a really good mini PC, and it has 2 10 gigabit SFP ports, just like TerraMaster. So we'll be connecting directly our mini PC with a NAS and see how long it takes to transfer 19 gigabyte files. So our first test is going to be download test. We will be copying file from a NAS and pasting it on our mini PC. And the speeds we are getting are 800 close to 900 megabytes a second. This is 19 gigabyte of mixed files, and it takes 23 seconds. Let's do the opposite test now. We are going to be uploading this file. It's obviously read operation is slightly slower, around 500 megabytes a second, and it takes 39 seconds to upload. Now we're going to do a 1500 megabyte test file upload and download for a couple of times, so 5 iterations, and see how long it takes to read and write the same file 5 times. And that's 53 seconds. And the top speed we were getting was 1055 megabytes a second. I think this NAS can actually deliver sustainable 10 gigabit speeds with the CPU it has inside. Okay, now it's time to transfer 1 gigabyte file remotely using 1 gigabit bandwidth ISP, and the speeds we are getting is around 1 megabyte a second. It's not as fast as Synology and Unify, and it takes 13 minutes 36 seconds to transfer this 1 gigabyte file. This is using TerraMaster Proxy service. It's bouncing through their server in Europe, and it takes 13 minutes 36 seconds. It's pretty bad. If you want the faster speed, you will probably need to consider Tailscale or private VPN. Okay, our next test is this NVMe USB. We connect it to USB port on TerraMaster and see how long it's gonna take to transfer 19 gigabyte files to a NAS. And it takes 57 seconds. That's USB 3, 5 gigabit speeds down there. That's our bottleneck. Okay, our next test is NVMe test. Since it has NVMe slots, you're going to put 2 NVMe's in there, set them individually to have storage space on its own, and then we'll transfer 19 gigabyte file from one SSD to another, so we can see what's the internal speed. Is there any bottlenecks regarding PCIe lanes or not? So let's copy file from one SSD and paste it on the other SSD. How long it's going to take to transfer 19 gigabyte file? And the answer is 28 seconds. So that comes down to somewhere around 5.8 gigabits per second. So that's basically USB speed, because these NVMe's normally are minimum 2 to 3 to even 5,000 megabytes a second. And what we are seeing is 5.8 gigabits. I think there are some PCIe lane bottlenecks. Okay, let's do our last test, which is transcoding test. How long it's going to take to stream 1 minute of 4K 60 frames per second video. So on purpose, I'm going to be accessing NAS remotely, and I'll play that file so it starts transcoding processing. How long it takes? Is it going to take 1 minute to stream this video, to play this video? Let's have a look. Let's play the file, and you can see there are a lot of buffering going on, and it takes way longer to play this 1 minute file than it should. It took 12 minutes to play 1 minute file. That's pretty bad. It will be quicker to download that file and play it manually. But obviously you need to understand that this NAS do not have transcoding engine built in. It uses raw CPU power to convert this video. So sometimes you need to consider downloading the file instead, or creating a smaller file, smaller video, so you could actually push that video through your ISP, your network connection, your internet connection, without need for transcoding. So these are the final results. This is UNAS Pro results, this is TerraMaster results. So in order to have a fair comparison between UNAS Pro and TerraMaster, we'll need to get rid of a few tests like RAID 1 building times and other things. And UNAS Pro came down to 1 hour, 34 minutes, 23 seconds total score. So let's put that on the board and see where TerraMaster stands. So adjusted UNAS Pro score is 1 hour, 34 minutes, 23 seconds. So TerraMaster T9-450, the final score is 1 hour, 15 minutes, 11 seconds. So if you're wondering which NAS is faster, T9 from TerraMaster. If you want me to test other NASs and see are they faster or slower than these two NASs, please follow and let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.